Hi, and welcome to another episode of Sussex Sport Weekly podcast. I am Mark Dunford, and I am joined by Brighton and Hove Albion writers Derren Howard and Frankie Elliott, and Sussex Sport guru Steve Bone. Brighton defender Lewis Dunk played for England in the 3-1 win over Scotland at Hampden Park on Tuesday, nearly 5 years after his international debut. We will delve into how Dunk performed. Dunk and his Albion teammates' thoughts now turn to a trip to Old Trafford on Saturday. We will see how the Seagulls are stacked ahead of that game. Meanwhile, Crawley Town stunned Newport County 4-1 at the weekend and face league strugglers Tranmere this weekend. We also get a rundown of which Sussex sides are in the FA Cup action this weekend. We'll start with Lewis Dunk's display for England. I was impressed with him. Were you, Derren? And what was the general reaction about his display by fans and pundits?
Yeah, no, I thought he looked really good. I was just so pleased to see that he played in a manner that he has been, playing for Brighton for the last sort of 5 years in the Premier League, and just improving as a player all the time. And I thought the way he played, he's old, he's obviously 31 years old now, and he went there with a lot more confidence. He looked, he's a completely different player to the player that made his debut 5 years ago and has never been seen since until the Scotland game. And I thought he did really well, and he could, he went in there full of confidence and just looked like one of the best defenders on the pitch, and proved that he's one of the best defenders in the Premier League. And you kind of look at it and you thought you're really pleased for him that he's there, but also you were wondering why Southgate waited just so long to get him in. When you look at players who have had a chance like Tarkowski, Connor Cody, Tyrone Mings, Michael Keane of Everton, have all played ahead of him. And I think Lewis Dunk really made a statement there to say, this is my position. I deserve to be here. And I thought he did really well. He blocked, tackled, read the game superbly, and looked every inch an international defender capable of playing for England on the biggest stage.
Excellent. And Frankie, he's got to be a shoe-in for the Euros, hasn't he? You would have thought if poor old Harry Maguire plays ahead of him, it would be a shocker, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing about the Maguire situation is obviously the lack of game time he has means it becomes more increasingly difficult for him to play for England. However, while I know he conceded an own goal on Tuesday and didn't play brilliantly, he hasn't let England down at a major tournament, which means an awful lot to go to Southgate. I mean, he has been actually one of England's players at international tournaments, and Southgate's run as manager has been based on the fact that he's been very successful. And I know they haven't won anything, but in the context of England, he has done very well. And Maguire fits into that because he's been an important player. So that's the only thing I could see from that side. But in regards to Lewis Dunk, Derren's absolutely right. Beforehand, a number of centre-backs have played ahead of him, mainly probably because although Dunk's been a top quality player, he's been playing in a side that's normally been in the bottom half of the table. I think the fact that he's now playing in one of the most attractive sides in Europe now and is the captain of that side means that Southgate can't really ignore him now. So I believe if Brighton continue to have as good a season as they did last year, that he's very much got a very strong case of being in that squad, because he is a defender in one of the best teams in Europe. And European sides, the Spains, Italy's, Germany's of the world pick the players from the best teams, and now Brighton have entered that bracket, which is great for him, and it's also great for England as well, because they're picking up not only a brilliant ball playing defender but also an out and out defender who's great at the basics, as Derren alluded to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what central defensive pairings would we all like to see start for England at the Euros? I think Duncan Stones would be good personally, but Frankie, starting with you, who do you think? Who can you see starting in that first game in the Euros?
It's going to be interesting to see if it starts with a back four or a back five. I think obviously we are looking at a basis on who they've got in the group, and that could depend on how many centre-backs they play. I think John Stones is obviously going to start if they play a two. I do wonder, because this is potentially Gareth Southgate's last tournament as England manager, we expect him to leave after the next Euros, whether he plays a younger defender as a way to sort of lasting legacy thing, to blood in a new defender to help England in the future. So someone like Levi Colwell or Mark Gahey could play in front, probably not as at the same level as Dunk right now, but potentially could be as good, if not better. So I could see that as a pairing potentially, but there's also the case for in the bigger games, going to that classic system of playing John Stones, Maguire, and Kyle Walker as a right centre back. That's always worked well again for Southgate. Those are the players he really trusts. I think Dunk's got still a long way to go to be trusted by Southgate. He's done well to get into the squad, but to enter that sort of close circle of trust for big games, I still think it's a little bit of a way off. So we'll see in the run up to the Euros whether he can enter that, but he's not quite there yet.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, I think if Euro 2024 started tomorrow, I think probably Maguire and Stones would be his chosen pairing. But there's quite a lot of football to be played between now and the start of that tournament. So I think Dunk has got a real chance to keep playing consistently well, keep Brighton in the top half of the Premier League, hopefully play a few more times for England and prove to Southgate that he is the one to be chosen alongside Stones. Southgate is very loyal to Maguire, so you kind of think Maguire probably will be there or thereabouts unless he has a bad season or doesn't play many games. But we've got a full season ahead of us before the finals, so injuries, bad form can still come into it. But I think Duncan's done everything he can to give himself a chance of being in one of those two positions, certainly being in the squad and hopefully being in one of those two positions come the tournament.
Yeah, and Derren?
Yeah, I think Maguire is, he is Southgate's trusted man, but I think if he'd have got his move to West Ham, he would have been in a better position to state his case. I just can't see him playing enough games at Man United to be a first choice England centre-back. So I think if I was to pick my top two, I'd look at John Stones. Obviously, he's the best centre back England have by a mile, and then the other position is up for grabs, and it's just who performs better. I'd love to see Stones and Levi Colwell play in there. I think that would be a nice balance. Depends how he gets on at Chelsea this season. But Gehi, I think he looked very good. He's athletic. He's quicker than Dunk as well. But I don't think Dunk gets into the first 11, but I think he should make the squad if he has a good season and stays injury free for Brighton. But yeah, my top two would be either Colwell and Stones, or Stones and Gehi, I think, for the championships.
Brilliant. And before we leave Dunk, Steve, you have been talking to the Chichester City coach, Darren Kilpatrick, this week, and he has a connection with the Albion star, doesn't he? Can you just talk us through that?
Yeah, he does. Lewis Dunk's career has been followed quite closely by fans of Bognor Regis Town, because when Dunk was 17 and a raw sort of kid in the Brighton youth team in the academy, he spent 2 months on loan at Bognor. And people remember it because he was one of those players who looked, you'd never known he was only 17 by the way he played. He came into men's football. It was his first go at men's football. It was in the Isthmian Premier League, so not an easy level to come into, quite tough, quite physically demanding. And he just took to it like a duck to water. Not only that, but he was coming into a struggling Bognor team. They were battling relegation at that time. He only played about 8 or 9 games. I think he scored 1 goal, and he might even have scored an own goal as well. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire. But as Darren Kilpatrick says, you could tell by his attitude, everything about him, not just the way he played, but the way he was off the pitch as well. You knew that was a player that was going to go a long way, had just the right approach to football, just the right attitude, and not afraid to get stuck in, put his body on the line for the team. And so, Dabba, as he's known, and everyone at Bognor really, was not surprised to see him go on to do so well at Brighton, and is quite proud to have seen an ex-Bognor player playing for England. There haven't been too many of them. In fact, I don't know if there's been any others at all. So, yeah,
it's a great picture you sent through as well. Him, 17 years old. It'll be on the Sussex World website, I guess, when it runs.
Yes, yeah. So I'm doing a piece later that will be online with Dabba talking about Dunk. It's a good link.
Lovely. Brilliant stuff. Back to Premier League action after that dull international break. Brighton face a trip to Old Trafford this weekend. How is the squad looking this weekend, Derren? How is Evan Ferguson's injury, and can we expect to see Ansu Fati make a much anticipated debut?
Yeah, there's a few selection decisions for De Zerbi to make. As you mentioned, Evan Ferguson, he pulled out of scored a hat-trick against Newcastle and then pulled out of the Ireland international camp with a sore knee. The Ireland manager said that he came into the camp and he had a knee issue going into the Newcastle game. So yeah, it just begs the question of what he's going to be like when he's fully fit, really. So if he scores a hat-trick when he's injured, so yeah, hopefully he'll be fit to face Manchester United. But they'll be assessing him. There were some training ground pictures that we saw, and there was no sign of Evan Ferguson participating in any of the pictures that we saw. Danny Welbeck was training. He looked as though he was fit and firing. He missed the Newcastle game with just described as a minor issue. So if Evan Ferguson isn't fit, then Danny Welbeck may come back into the team. He looks as though he was training well. But then, as you say, there's Ansu Fati. He could make his debut as well. He wasn't fit enough to start. He joined late in the window along with Carlos Baliba, the £25 million midfielder from Lille, and both watched on from the stands as they beat Newcastle 3-1. So those two could come into contention against Manchester United as well. Especially if Welbeck and Ferguson are a bit dodgy, then Ansu Fati could be in one of those attacking roles as well. And I think Igor Julio as well. I think he may come into the picture as well in the next couple of games. They've got Man United swiftly followed by their first Europa League game on the Thursday against AEK Athens at the Amex Stadium. So I think Igor Julio could come in as well. So there could be three debutants for Brighton in the coming fixtures.
Wow. Manchester United seem to be a bit of a shambles at the moment, don't they, Frankie? Brighton must go there as favourites, but who do Albion need to be wary of in the United front?
Yeah, they do at the moment. I mean, if you look at all of United's first 4 games of the season, they have won 2, but the 2 wins, they were 2-0 down to Nottingham Forest and picked up the win with a very dubious penalty. And against Wolves, they were by far the less superior team, and Wolves should have probably at least got a draw, maybe even got the 3 points. So it's been a rocky start. But the thing that Brighton always have to remember, and I think this is the thing that United have still ingrained in them, is they can pick up wins when they're not playing particularly well. They've still got a lot of match winners in that side. Obviously, people like Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford. They've also got Champions League experience winners in Casemiro and Varane. So there's a lot of players in there that can get them over the line, which you've seen this season and also in previous seasons as well. So that's always an issue, especially at Old Trafford as well, and they've got 75,000 fans behind them. So in regards to Brighton going in as favourites, I think they do go in as favourites. And I think we can expect them to be the better side in regards to, I'm sure they're going to have more possession. I'm sure they're going to create more chances. But the key thing is taking those chances, because as we've seen already this season, even if they're a goal ahead or 2 goals ahead, United have the capability of bringing it back due to the level of quality that is in that squad. It's not really come together yet, but there is it is there, and it can turn on an instant, I think. So that's something to always be wary of.
Frankie, staying with you, how excited are you to see Ansu Fati possibly make his debut for Brighton Hove Albion?
Yeah, no, it's incredibly exciting. It's going to be, not only is it exciting for the fact that they've got a Barcelona star going to be wearing a Brighton shirt, which is going to be an amazing moment. It's going to be interesting, more and importantly, to see where he starts. I think Derren's alluded to it. I think you're more likely to see, he's been playing out wide on the sort of attacking left midfield for Barcelona in the last year and a half. But obviously that's Karim Matoma's position. So I'd imagine if Ferguson or Welbeck are not 100%, we can imagine seeing maybe as a central striker, which is where he started his career. So it's a very interesting way to see how he'll slot in, which is I've said before, it's a bizarre thing to be saying about a Barcelona player coming to Brighton. That instead of going, wow, I can't wait to watch him, you're going, where does he play? But that's where Brighton are at the moment. And I think the most important, the key thing will be to see how well he is adapted to the Premier, how quickly he can adapt to the Premier League, because Manchester United is still one of the biggest clubs, and still one of the best teams in the league. Playing at Old Trafford, that's with all the glitz and glamour, the biggest ground in England outside of Wembley. It's a real good place for him to make a statement about his intentions on how well he can play by getting off to a good start. And I think playing up front allows him to be on the end of a lot of good opportunities created by the rest of the team. So there's a real potential for him to get his first goal in his first game as well. So it's incredibly exciting. And like I said, it'd be interesting to see where he slots into this very well-oiled machine at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we believe we have Sam Morton, who's going to be at Old Trafford for us this week. So we'll look out for his updates at the weekend. I'm going to talk about Crawley Town now. I've got no one to ask me questions about it, but I will talk about it. Crawley, they were again magnificent as they beat Newport County 4-1 on Saturday. They're now up to 10th in the league. The stats were unbelievable in favour of Crawley. I've talked about it before that they're playing like peak Barcelona, and they had 71% possession. They had 640 passes compared to Newport's 250, I think it was. They were absolutely superb, and now they've got to take that into next game, which is against Tranmere on Saturday. Tranmere, who are near the bottom of League Two, they've only won one of their first 7 games. They've just sacked manager Ian Dawes, and Nigel Adkins has come in. He was their technical director. He's now taken over as a temporary charge of Tranmere. Crawley will go into the game expecting to win, or be the odds-on favourites to win, but it'd be interesting challenge for them. Slightly different. Newport came out and who were one of the better teams. Tranmere are really struggling at the moment, and Crawley are on a high. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one. And hopefully Crawley can win again and keep climbing up League Two. So enough about boring professional well, it's semi-professional football, Steve. Well, it's the second qualifying round of the FA Cup this weekend, and we have 9 teams from Sussex playing in it. I think it's the best we've had for a few seasons, isn't it? And can you just go through who's playing and who we can expect to go through, Steve?
Certainly can. Yeah, it's the best number at this stage for 5 years. I think 5 years ago, our friend Will did a piece for us, and I think he said there was 11 Sussex teams at this stage 5 years ago. But yeah, we've got 8 ties to get excited about, because 2 of our teams are playing each other. Eastbourne Borough against Worthing is the big one for Sussex. Our 2 National South teams up against each other, played each other in the Cup last year, actually, and Eastbourne went through on that occasion. Difficult to call, actually, because Worthing have had a very good start to the league season. Eastbourne Borough have been a little bit up and down, but can be very good on their day, and have got home advantage. Wouldn't be a surprise to see that come back to a Woodside Road replay next week. But 7 other teams involved, so I'll run through the ties. Ascot United against Lewes, which you would expect Lewes to win against the lower place team there. Dover against Hastings. You'd probably say Hastings are second favourites there against the National South side, but Hastings on very good form. They've won 4 in a row in the league and are scoring plenty of goals. Eastbourne United are at home to Berkhamsted, down at the Prince's Park Oval. So there's 2 FA Cup games in Eastbourne for people to choose from. Sport for choice down there. Again, Eastbourne United very much the underdogs there. Stenning against Maidstone is one of the more intriguing ones. So that's step 5 against step 2. Stenning, nothing to lose, but it's the FA Cup, so anything can happen. They'll be going into it thinking they've got a chance. A couple of our Isthmian Premier teams are at home. Horsham are at home to Marlow. Should win that, really. Again, Horsham had a good start in the league, so you'd expect them to come through that. Whitehawk are at home to Red Hill. Surrey team, again, you'd say they're favourites there. And last but not least of our Sussex teams, Burgess Hill, who of course beat Bognor in the last round, are away to Sheppey, who play in the same league as them. I'm going to say we're going to have about 5 teams through to the next round if all goes well at the weekend. You can tell me I'm wrong next week if you want to, and you show for what it is, but I'm going to go for 5 of those to get through, and it should be a cracking weekend of cup action.
Yeah, and it's great to see Stenning have a big tie like that. Stenning it's their biggest game in their history, isn't it?
I think so, yes. Yeah, they're going to have a crowd of 600, possibly a bit more than that, down there for that. And as with all these games, nothing to lose, have they? They can go for it. They might end up getting beaten 6-0. You just don't know, but it'll be packed out. And our colleague Sam Woodman, I think, is going to be in the crowd there cheering them on. So we'll have, of course, from the Cup, plenty of reports and pictures on Sussex World from Saturday night onwards.
Lovely. We'll go on to the Steve Bone sponsored score predictions corner. We start off with the big one at Manchester United versus Brighton. Frankie, what are you thinking for this one?
I think so far I've got a record of not even 0 correct scores, 0 correct results. So we're flying at the moment. So I'm going to go. So Brighton have won their last 3 league games against United, and they were very unlucky in the FA Cup game as well. So on a good run against them, I'm going to confidently go for a 2-1 Brighton win.
Cool, Derren.
Yeah, it's always hard after the international break. You never know quite. The managers don't have too much time to prepare, and you're never quite sure how the injuries are. But yeah, based on Brighton's recent record against United, and the form that they're in so far, I think they're going to get a win. And yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 to Brighton. 2-1.
I'm going to be a bit more confident. I'm going to go 3-1 Brighton. I just think Man United, the shambles they are at the moment, and Brighton playing some good stuff. Ansu Fati will score. That's what I'm going for. Steve Bone?
Every week so far, I've gone for Brighton draw, and so far they haven't had a draw. Man United 0, Brighton 0. It's going to be tight. Oh. Don't think Brighton are going to. Yeah, don't think it's going to be as easy for Brighton as you guys think it will be.
Fair enough. Awesome. Cool. Excellent. Right, we'll move on to the mighty Crawley Town. I'm going for an easy 3-0 win here. Tranmere, they in a bit of trouble, and I think Crawley Town will take advantage. They're riding high. Steve, I'm going to go to you straight away on this one.
I'm a bit confused. Yeah, I'm a bit confused about Crawley, because on Monday you were telling us that it's like watching Brazil, and now today you're telling us it's like watching Barcelona. So you need to make your mind
up. A mixture of both. Steve.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Crawley Town win.
Lovely. Frankie?
I think the free-flowing nature of Crawley's football at the moment is obviously great. It's great to watch, and they're playing really well. So I'm going to go for 4-0 Crawley.
Wow.
Come on. That's what I like to hear. Derren?
I'm going to go for a 2-0 for Crawley. Really impressed how they've been playing by the looks of it. I haven't seen too much, but on the highlights that I've seen, they look as though they're playing some great football. So yeah, 2-0.
Lovely. And just quickly, Eastbourne Borough versus Worthing, the big FA Cup tie for Sussex this weekend. What's the score going to be, Steve?
I'm going to go for 3-3. A goal fest at Priory Lane, and back to a replay next week.
Oh, Frankie.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm not going to go for as many goals, but I think it's going to be a draw. I'm going to go for 1-1.
Yeah, and Derren, your old stomping ground.
Yeah, many days at Priory Lane. I saw they signed the old Brighton player Zach Emerson as well, haven't they? He was in the Brighton youth team, so he's a decent for Eastbourne Borough to bring in. So yeah, I think it'll be close, but I think I'll go for a 2-1 to Eastbourne Borough.
Excellent, and I'm going to go for a draw as well. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and we'll have a replay. So thanks, guys. Thanks for everything there. You can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk. See you next week.